Hi everyone, this is Sharon. If any of you were curious what I've been doing the last 6 weeks, well, here's the answer. I've been working on this rather large custom journal. I had someone approach me and ask if I would make a custom prayer journal for them, which I agreed to do. And they also requested to have at least 200 pages in there. So this is the book cover that we picked out together. I put this rather large leather belt on as the closure, and it really doesn't need a closure. It lies flat, but I always like to add one on. I think it finishes it off, and if the person adds extra things to the journal, it might bulk it up a little bit, and this would always hold everything together. The reason I chose this is because of the buckle. I mean, I took one look at that and I thought, yes, that is the one for this journal. So I'm going to remove this so we can look at the cover a little bit better. So when we picked out this book cover for the journal, I had my suspicion that it might be tough to put 200 pages in here because I had a 1 3/4 inch spine. And as I was making the pages for the journal, I realized pretty quickly that it was not going to fit into this cover. So what I had to do was I had to alter the original cover and add an extra piece because I really needed a 3-inch, hopefully you can see that, a 3-inch spine. And so I got really lucky with this one because I started going through my collection and I found a book on Tennyson's poems that I had, and they were both books are from about the same area, the late 1800s. So the styling is very similar. The size is exactly what I needed, both height and width. And so I really reconstructed the whole thing and rebuilt the spine from the inside out. I also, where the two spines meet, I added this little trim piece in there from a piece of cardstock, and I added some gold gilding and some ink to kind of give it an aged look, and I really like the way that turned out. Let me tell you, there's nothing scarier than slicing into the spine of a book cover after you spent weeks working on the contents and knowing that you have to make it work. The back side of this book is the original book cover, and usually 9 times out of 10 when I'm working with an old book cover, I love to keep it just as is. I love to keep the stains, the tears, everything. I think that's a part of it. But this one just happened to have some very severe scribble marks in the back, and it just wasn't sitting right with me, so I did end up having to recover it. And so what I did was I took a piece of manuscript paper and I stenciled it, again using some inks and gold gilding, and then I sealed it up and attached it to the back side, and I think that really finishes off the journal quite nicely. So it is a very thick one, as you can see, 3 inches. It has 13 signatures and about 220 pages, I would say. I kept it fairly simple, not a lot of embellishing on the edges. The person asked not that I use little to no fabric and lace, but knowing me, I have to put some fabric in. That's just a part of my journals. As far as lace in this one, I think I only used it maybe once or twice in the whole book. So going inside, this is going to take a bit, so get comfortable. For the inside cover, I use this really pretty damask. It's a green and cream color. And then for the spine, I covered that with a piece of upholstery fabric in this really pretty blue and kind of a beige color tone. And it goes really nicely with the colors in the book. I used a lot of soft greens, blues, and purples in this journal. So for the first page, this is one of my favorite images of Mary and Jesus. So I put that on the first page. And then on the back side of a lot of the images, I used pattern paper or printed pattern paper, but I left them fairly light so this could easily be used as a writing page. And here I just added a little ruffle in the top corner. I added quite a bit of authentic ephemera in here. So here is a color plate from a religious book, really pretty. It's an old German book from the late 1800s. And then there's a book page attached to it as well. I also used quite a few pages from a book that I acquired last year, I think it was. It's called The Psalms of David. And it just has some really pretty script and images in that book. So I pulled a lot from there. And then I used a number of authentic French, Italian, and German holy cards. So here's one. This has some really pretty, beautiful handwriting on the back. It's a First Communion card. And then I also included this page from a French notebook. This page is some beautiful ledger paper that I got from Liz on Lucky Street, and it's dated 1871. I didn't want to do anything to cover it up because it's so gorgeous. I also incorporated some gardening and botanical book pages in this journal. Here I created a tuck using this image of a beautiful church. And then on this page, I clipped a little journaling spot. And on this page, I printed this beautiful image on vellum and just stitched that to this page so you could still see it underneath. In this journal, I've used quite a few digital kits from various artists. I used mainly, I would say, Ruby and Pearl and Roxy Creations. Here on this page, I created a belly band. And this is a medieval mirage image. And then here, I just added a little vellum pocket on there and stamped. And then this is a French holy card, and that's dated 1933. And then this flips open and there's some vintage papers inside. In this journal, I used a number of postcards that I acquired when I was in Florence a number of years back. So I really love these Italian postcards. Now, they aren't real old. I think they're probably vintage. I bought them in a little antique shop there. But they, like I said, they're reproductions. I don't know how old they are, but they're just really beautiful. Here on this page, I included this music sheet. And this is a page from an old French book that I got from the 1700s. I'll talk a little bit more about it because I've got the title page of this later on in the book. And then I've used some landscape images and printed those on linen paper in here. Here I created a pocket with a piece of, I've used this a number of times throughout the book. It's a striped fabric. It almost reminds me of like an old Hebrew cloth or something, but I stitched that in there. And then here's another one of those postcards that I got in Florence. I've got several of these. This is another old ledger paper from, one of them has a date on, I think it's the 1880s. This is masking paper, and here I added a little belly band. It's a small one, but you could tuck something in there. I did some stenciling on this side of the page. Here I created a pocket from, it was a history book on religions, and this one just happens to be on St. Dunstan. And then in there I included this poem. And there's room to write on the back. Here I have an envelope from one of Roxy Creations' digital kits. And I just included a couple of journaling cards in there. This has a closure. I created a little buckle and that closes up. These two pages, I created some side tucks. And then in there, I added these journaling cards. That side and this one. And then I also included throughout the book, mostly in journaling cards and tags, some Bible verses. This is a calendar from 1949. Here I created a side tuck, and in there I made this journaling card from a book page. It's a book page from 1942, but I really like this gold frame that was on there. And so I just adhered an image of a holy card on there. Here's another page from that Psalms of David book. And then in there, I created a pocket and made this journaling card. This is locked paper. It's got a really nice texture to it. Here I just embellished the page a little bit with this oval and some punch trim on there. Here I created a side tuck with one of those Italian postcards and did some stamping on the top, and then created this journaling card. Here's the title page of that book I was telling you about. I've incorporated these pages in a lot of my journals. It's really large, so it was appropriate and worked really well for this journal. And this is the title page, and I just love it. It's so pretty, and I did make a copy of that. But this is the original, and it is dated 1741, so it's quite old. On the top of this page I did a little stenciling with some cream paste, and then just inked it up a little bit. Here I created a side tuck, and in there I stuck this embroidery image, and then there's room to journal on the back of that. Here I added some stamps. This pocket I made from a piece of, it's actually some type of money from Cambodia, but I love the images on there. And then I just trimmed it up again with some linen fabric. And then I made this journaling card of this beautiful church and used some vintage invoice paper on the back. And I like to do that because I think, you know, with an ink pen, you can easily write across the top of this. And then I also put a little stamp in the corner. In the back of this is a gardening book page. I love some of the images in that book, so I've incorporated those. Here I covered these pages again with some of the vintage invoices I have from, these are German. And then in the center, I've got this sheet, which I treated with beeswax, so it's really translucent and you can see through it. It's from a catalog from the mid-1800s, the image, and it's a catalog that sold really ornate furniture and a lot of religious articles as well. Here again is a page from a French notebook. And then on this page, I just clipped this over the top of the page. It's a very long journaling card. It's got this image on the front. And then, hopefully you can see all of that. And then there's some place to write in the middle, in the inside. And then this is the back side. And then this is one of the original book pages that go with the cover of this journal. And I incorporated a number of those in here as well. And then I just adhered on top of it. It's not a pocket or anything, but it's just a piece of vellum with a beautiful image on it. Here I created a corner tuck, and in there I added this large journaling card. I did a little hand stitching. I don't think that really qualifies as lace, right? And then in here, again, I created a vellum pocket. And then in there, I have this original holy card. and that is made in Italy from 1938. This is a treated napkin, some of my coffee dyed paper. Then in the center of this signature, I've got these side pockets, and then in there I tucked, this is an image of an old letter. And on the top, I adhered some of my own pressed flowers from my yard. And I just decoupaged those on. They are delicate. I mean, I did seal them in there pretty good, but you do have to be careful with them. And then on this side, I have another image of a family record page. And then I also added a couple of my pressed flowers on there as well. Then in the center, I've got these two embossed pockets that I added. And then in there is this Italian postcard. On this page, I took this ornate trim and stitched it on the page. It goes back up and over to the other side of the page, and then I just tacked it down here with some embossed paper, and has a little gold gilding on there. And then I just added this metal to the end. And then on this side, I've got another metal on there, and that hangs down. I've incorporated some of my favorite images, religious images, and this is one. I just think the colors and everything is so beautiful on there. And then here is another one of those. Okay, this one has 1889 on it. Here I created a little pocket, and in there I made this journaling card and added one of my vintage French stamps, postage stamps, and embellished the back a little bit. On this page, I made side tucks from this beautiful old, this is French wallpaper from the late 1800s, and I just love the rich colors in there. In this pocket, I added this French postcard. It's got some pretty writing on the back. Looks like it's from 1910. And then here I just created a journaling sheet from a digital image. And then I did a little stenciling on the back of that. In the center, I created an envelope and just decorated that up a bit. And then in there, I tucked this sheet. This is the copy of my grandfather's first communion certificate, and it's from 1915. And I have the original, and when you see it in person, what they did back then for these certificates is just amazing. They're just beautiful. And then this is the back side of the envelope. And then on this side, in this pocket, I have one of these bank certificates. I got this from Rachel at Roxy Creations. So this is an Italian from 1940. All right, I'm going to take my prop out of there. Okay, so on this side, I created a top loading pocket, and I just inserted a book page on that book about the religions. This is, again, a treated napkin. I love doing that. Treat it with some coffee dye, and it looks really pretty. Here I added some pages from a bird book that I have. And then in this pocket, I've got this journaling card with this image of the church on there. And here I created another pocket or tuck spot and just included this little poem in there. It's got a verse on there. Here I stamped onto a piece of cheesecloth and just adhered that to the page and added one of those laundry tags. Again, in the middle of this signature, I used the side tucks, and then there I created some journaling cards. On this side, this beautiful image of the church. Here I worked with some piano paper and added that, stitched it to the page, backed it with some ledger paper. I did a little bit of Mod Podging with some of my favorite napkins. This side has, you're not gonna be able to see that. This side has the piano paper. And then I just did a little fabric flip here and stuck an image underneath there. On this page, I added wax seal. Here I created a corner tuck with this piece of vellum that has this beautiful door on it. And in there I just put this journaling card. On this side I stitched a pocket onto the page and then inserted this is an original postcard from Paris with some beautiful writing on the back. Here I created a double belly band with some trim, and in there I have this vintage vellum envelope. It had, I think, some corner photo corners in it, but it was naturally aged and I just love the old yellowing of it. I had to stitch it up and make it the right size, but I wanted to tuck this antique holy card in there, and it's very delicate, the edges, so I wanted to preserve it as much as possible. This is a German one. I don't know the year, but it's quite old. This is an old German Bible page. Then in the center of this signature, I have a couple of shallow pockets on the bottom. I actually put pockets in the pockets. So here in these pockets, I've got 2 large journaling cards. And I outlined those with these lace images. And I actually took one photograph of this building and cut it in 2. So I made the 2 cards from the one image. And then these are the backs. In the shallow pockets in the bottom, I've got this is an original holy card from France. And on this side, I created this card and just backed it with some of that ledger paper and some embossing. Here I have a little tuck spot and inserted another long journaling card with some lined paper on the back. Here's another one of those vellum pieces with, this one has a really ornate window on it. I backed that with a German book page so you can see the printing through that. And in there I tucked this journaling card I made from a library catalog card. And just a little stamping on the back. Here I created a fabric tab with a wax seal on there. This corner tuck, I have this image of Mary. And in there I have this large journaling card. And this is actually a tuck spot on the front of that. Place to right inside. It's got the beautiful image on the back. This is a page from a book from the late 1800s that I bought, and it's on birds, but it's very thick and it just has the most gorgeous bird images in it. And so I added this one in here. Here I created this pocket, and in there I put this tag with this beautiful image of the church. And then this is, looks like a crazy quilt or some type of embroidery on the back. But there are nice spots to write on there. On this page, I just have this masking paper on the front that can be used for writing. In the center of this signature, I have this map. It's one that I've been using bits and pieces of, but mostly hoarding. But I thought it was perfectly placed in this journal. It's a map of the Middle East, and it tracks things like the route of the Exodus, St. Paul's travels, the Crusades, and maps out Judea, Jerusalem, lots of the Holy Lands. The other side of that sheet. I love how the fruit comes through on some of these garden book images. Then here I created a side pocket, and in there I added this card and has some embossing on the back. Here's a pocket for more of that striped linen fabric. And then here's another image from that old German religious book. And this does have the title page attached to it, 1896. Here I created a tuck with little bits of fabric and a wax seal. This is one of my favorite all-time ledger papers, and it's from 1877. And it's just got the most beautiful shades of blue, brown, black, and beautiful aging on the corners. That was one, I believe, again, I got from Liz on Lucky Street. She's got the greatest ledger paper. Here I created a side tuck and inserted this large journaling card that I made, and I just used some paper trim on the bottom of that. It's really hard when you want to use real trims, but you have to try to keep things as flat as possible. And then I just used this botanical, it was either a seed catalog or a flower catalog image. In here, I did some decorative stitching on these pages and added some tucks so you could, it's actually a pocket because I did glue the bottom down, so you can stick something into this corner. On this side I did that, and I added a wax seal on this one. So in here I have this journaling card. And just added some images to the inside. Stamped the back. Down in this pocket, I created this journaling card. Again, did a little bit of stitching on the top. This is one of the original book pages. In this pocket, this is, I think it's vellum or tracing paper. And in there, I have a supply of, there are dividers for an old folio type thing or some type of organizing type of, I don't know, it was cardboard. But anyway, it had these beautiful old brass tabs on the top. So I took one of those sheets and used that as the basis of this card. And then just added a piece of fabric to the back of that. On this page, I have a side tuck there. flips out. Lots of writing space on that page. And I've got this image. And this is vintage music paper. Here I created a corner tuck, and in there I've got this vintage postcard. It was from a religious site, and it was a book, and there are a bunch of postcards in there, and I pulled this one out. And that was from France. And then here I just created this journaling card, added some music paper, punched the edge of that. On this page, I embellished with one of these metal filigree and then just added some trim on there. In the center of this signature, I took a double book page from, it was a book on the houses of New England. And it's kind of thick, it's more like cardboard. And I created an envelope. And I just put this flap on there and these two tabs. And then I created it as kind of an expanding one, so I've got sides on there. You can get quite a bit of papers tucked in there. And what I have in there right now is this First Communion certificate for my grandmother. This is 1925. And then I just added a place to journal on the back of that. Here are some book pages from a religious book that I had, and it's got a lot of maps again from the Holy Land. And then I also have this journaling card that I made, kind of a booklet-like thing. Places to journal in there. I'm going to prop this side up again as we get to the back of the book. Hopefully you can see that okay. On this side, I don't think that's going to work. Okay, on this side I've got a little tab here, and this flips out. Beautiful old German book page. And then I created a corner tuck here with this vintage postcard. And in there, I tucked another one of these sheets that I treated with beeswax. This is, again, from that 1850s catalog that sold religious items and really ornate household items. Then I also have this journaling sheet. Again, a beautiful picture of Mary and angels and Jesus. And then here I've got a belly band again where I hung this. So this is one of those Italian postcards. And then in there I've got this holy card. This is an original from 1956. This is a French one. Here I stitched some writing lines, so this could be used to write on. And then I've got a little stamp under there. This is a pretty bird page from one of my bird books. And then here I've got some original book pages, and I made pockets for those. And in there I added these journaling cards. Got a little tuck spot here with the French postcard. This is from one of those little postcard books where you get a whole bunch in there. And some Italian paper. And this one's pretty much the same. Different postcard. Here I've got a vellum pocket that I stitched on, and in there I created this journaling card. And then on this page, I kind of folded these back to make some side pockets or side tucks. Added a little bit of embellished trim in the middle there. And then I've got these, love these, oops, sorry. Love these embroidery trimmed images. These are from Roxy Creations. Okay, here I created a little tuck, and in there I put this page from an old German book. I think it's this like family chronicle or family record or something like that. It's just a really pretty place to journal. Here's another old ledger sheet from 1898. All the ledger sheets in here that I have are originals. I don't think I had any copies in here. Here's another embroidery piece. I like working with those. And I back that with ledger paper. In this pocket, I created this little journaling card and tied it up. Use these beautiful patterns and images. And then the inside I put grid paper. Then in the center of the signature, I added this vintage envelope with this beautiful writing on it. I just created some spots in here with little pockets, tuck spots. And the inside of this envelope had this beautiful purpley plum lining to it. Here I created a corner tuck with some Tim Holtz paper, and this is, I think, from an old invoice from 1940. And in there I tucked this piece of vintage wallpaper. I just love the pattern on there and the colors. And the back of that will be a really fun place to journal. I just added a header on there. But I didn't want to do anything to the front because I just love the way it looked against this creamy ledger paper. In this side tuck, I inserted this piece of, it's an original French notebook page with some beautiful handwriting on it. Here I have a beautiful piece of trim and then this little medal. This, I'm trying to remember what book I got this out of. This is a page, it had some really beautiful images in it. This is Moses and Aaron before Pharaoh. And this side had Joseph and his brothers. Then in the center of the signature, I added a doily with that I treated with beeswax, so it's very translucent. I love the way that looks. Here I've got a gilded embossed pocket. And in there I've got this original holy card. This is a French one from 1951. And then one of those Italian postcards. We are getting down to the end. Here is a calendar page that I added, and then I did this punched. I've got this, it's silver on one side, almost like foil, and craft paper on the other. So I love punching that out and using this silver trim, and I just kind of dulled it down and aged it a bit with some ink. And then in this side tuck, I made this journaling card. And I just stamped this on some cheesecloth and stitched that on. And guess what? We made it to the end. Whew. So that is the prayer book I've been working on, and hopefully my customer can take a look at this video and see whether they're interested. If they are not, hopefully they are. If not, I will post this in my Etsy shop. But my next project will be Christmas journals, which I'm always excited to make. So that will be the next thing. Watch for those in the next few weeks. Also, a number of people from my last video had requested that I do a tutorial on embossing velvet. So I will be doing that too, probably within the next week or two. I would say stay tuned for a tutorial on how to do that. It'll be pretty quick. It's really easy. It's really fun. So watch for that. But until then, bye-bye.